Hey everybody, this is Blake here, and I look as junky as I feel, all unshaven, and I haven't slept very well these past few days, and I just have not been feeling very good. So I've been really slow on pretty much everything from getting out these vlogs to talking about wrestling to on my Facebook page to posting my written reviews. Puppet Master Month is unfortunately going to spill into April. Story of my life. I don't even want to think about anything that will actually take real work from me, such as critiquing the critics or Kick Ass of Awesome. I was supposed to get that shit done 3 months ago, and yeah, I don't have even a finish date planned. So yeah, everything's sort of fucked up right now. But let's go ahead and start talking about the Gunman. I was really interested in seeing this movie once I first checked out the trailer, and that ended when the reviews started coming in at Rotten Tomatoes, and for a long time this film was stuck at 0%. Eventually it did start jumping up, or I should say climbing up really slowly, but not to the point where it seemed like this would be a good or even an okay movie. In fact, the only reason I bothered watching it at all in the end was because the only competition was Insurgent, and I thought Divergent sucked. God, that film bored me so much. It was like Ender's Game in that the entire film is more or less a training segment, except at least Ender's Game had some cool visuals. Divergent was just bland from beginning to end, so dull, so boring. There was absolutely nothing to make an attachment to. And I swore to myself that unless Insurgent got significantly better reviews, I would not bother with it. And it did not get very good reviews. I think the reception was pretty much the same as what the first film got. So I decided to skip it, and I was stuck with the Gunman. Well, I didn't actually read or watch any of the reviews. I just went based off of Rotten Tomatoes. And I suspect that if I actually went down and checked out every single review, almost everybody would probably say that this film is mediocre. It's a two-star movie, which is generally enough to qualify for a Rotten Tomato on that website. And that's because, for the most part, The Gunman is mediocre. It's competently made in regards to its technical aspects. I did not take any issue with the cinematography, with the editing, with the direction. The acting was fine. Really, every single individual scene was acceptably written. There is some good dialogue here and there. There are some compelling interactions here and there. I actually enjoyed the first act of this movie before you realized what exactly was going on, simply because there was a sense of urgency, there was a sense of mystery. When Sean Penn's in the Congo and people try to abduct him or at least inject him with something, the sense of panic that this character feels, uh, that really rubbed off on me, and that gave me hope that I was about to watch a good movie. Unfortunately, it went downhill from there. On its surface level, like I said, I believe that this is a very normal action thriller. It never excels, but at the same time, it doesn't do a whole lot very poorly. It wasn't until I really started reflecting about it that I realized that if you go beneath the surface, you will find nothing but shit. Self-important shit. I really do think that one point Sean Penn was really trying to push an agenda on the audience, but it just got lost in there somewhere. So in the end, I didn't really come out feeling like I learned anything, that there was a message that really stuck to me. It was more or less the same kind of message I think that Blood Diamond presented, but the difference is Blood Diamond was a well-made film that actually was focused on its primary goal, so it worked as such, and I felt like I learned some shit about that industry, and it moved me. The Gunman never did anything like that. Instead, it just kind of annoyed me and bored me once I really started thinking about it. So, uh, there are maybe three big action scenes, and like I said, they were fine. If you took these same action scenes, put them in a good movie, they would have fit in pretty nicely. Uh, in terms of the acting, everybody does well, but at the same time, everybody is kind of wasted. So Sean Penn is more or less just playing the quintessential Sean Penn character. But I like Sean Penn, so he's cool. Um, Javier Bardem, really good at playing kind of the drunken douchebag. He's nowhere near as prominent as the trailers suggest he is. Like, you get the impression that he's this big mastermind villain in the trailers. He's really not. If anything, I don't want to say he's a red herring because, for the most part, you know that you can't trust this character, but you also can tell that he's nowhere threatening enough to be the main bad guy. And there's a pretty solid supporting cast. I can't think of the guy's name right now, but he was in The Departed. I believe he played Beowulf in that CG animated film. I recently saw him in Tracker and Edge of Darkness with Mel Gibson. Excellent actor. He's in it. He does really good in his limited screen time. Idris Elba shows up, also really good in his limited screen time. But for the most part, these guys only show up once or twice, interact with Sean Penn a bit, and that is all you get of them. And it's not even like sometimes the interactions themselves are really underwhelming. Like the first time Idris Elba talks with Sean Penn, it's just Idris Elba talking and Sean Penn kind of ignoring him. But still, like I said, everything is fine on a surface level. The pacing really sucks, though. In fact, I actually thought we were nearing the climax around the halfway point. So at one point, they go to this villa, and that ends with this big action scene, and then they escape the villa. Well, I presumed that once they left, the story was immediately entering its third act, in which it would now be a ride to the finale. I was wrong. That was like 45 minutes into the movie. It's just because it was so clunkily paced. Actually, maybe closer to an hour. But because it was so clunkily paced, I thought I had been watching this so much longer. Then they focused more on this tepid love story. More on that later. And then they go to another action scene where Sean Penn confronts the main villain for the first time. And I thought that was the finale, that this is where the film was going to wrap itself up. I was wrong once again. No, that scene ends and it goes through another scene, and then once it arrives to the next action sequence, that is the finale. And by then, I was just so burnt out and exhausted that I couldn't care less, or I could care less. Jackie Chan and Tony Jaa could have showed up and choreographed an excellent fight scene together, and I doubt it would have recaptured my interest by that point. I was just drifting off, and it's not a long movie. I think it's like an hour and 40-something minutes. I just watched... Oh, shit, my leg's falling asleep. I just watched Good Girl, or Gone Girl last night, and that is a 2.5-hour long movie. Very slow paced, but it's a really good film. It is a film that leaves an impression on you, the right kind of impression on you. And yeah, it felt like a 2.5-hour long movie, but the Gunman wasn't 2.5 hours, but it felt as long. And unlike Gone Girl, I didn't feel rewarded for enduring that running time. So yeah, this film just totally failed in regards to keeping at least this viewer's attention. But where I really started to get angry with this movie, because otherwise I would have just dismissed it with a 2-star rating myself, but where I feel I need to go a little bit lower is this really did have some awful character writing. And I mean awful in that the characters are not very endearing. Now, Sean Penn's character, he is this assassin who is involved in this plot to make sure the conflict in the Congo, I believe it was, keeps going in order for them to, or for companies, in order for these companies to exploit, uh, their lands. Okay, but the thing is Sean Penn is going through a redemptive arc. He starts working hard to atone for his past sins. Therefore, I can forgive him. I mean, this is a movie. If that in real life, that would be a whole other issue. But it's a movie, so I can go along with that. However, he just seems so rude and unpleasant, and they established that so early on that it just made me care less about what this character was going through, just because he's kind of a prick. So I'm going to talk about the very first scene of the primary characters and why this film immediately turned me off on them. So, Sean Penn is going out with the main love interest. Javier Bardem's character has a major crush on the love interest, and it's very obvious, but I'll discuss that in a moment. So, Javier Bardem and this girl, I can't think of her name, they're having a pretty deep conversation about this project they're working on. Sean Penn comes over, doesn't even acknowledge Javier Bardem's character, and he asks her, where do you want me? Where should I sit? And she just says, well, right here, when that just happens to be where Javier Bardem is sitting. So that seemed like a very cold dismissal on her part, because Javier Bardem just has to get up and move across. And then Sean Penn and her start making out. Now, in my opinion, that is rude anyway, when you start doing that in public, especially when you're with other people whom you were previously conversing with. But it made it worse because Javier Bardem's looking at them with such annoyance, and I don't see how. It's obvious that they know he likes her, just based on later dialogue where Sean Penn tells Javier Bardem to take care of her, as well as he even at one point says, how come you can't love the soft ones, Javier Bardem, to her, and she just kind of laughs it off. So I think she even knows that Javier Bardem likes her, but they're still just making out while he just looks on in utter distress. But at the same time, you can't really sympathize with Javier Bardem's character because he's being a little creepy about it. But then Javier Bardem's like, was there anything else? And then she stops making out with Sean Penn and looks at him with this major, oh, you're still here kind of stare. And then she finishes the conversation about what she needs for this project. And then they resume making out again. And I'm like, wow, these people are all kind of horrible. And yet I'm supposed to root for them for the rest of this movie. Well, anyway, Sean Penn has to carry out this assassination, and part of the rule is that he must leave Congo once he carries it out, which means he has to abandon this girl. So he does that, and does he really seem devastated about that? Not really. He seems kind of sad, but not totally broken up. I mean, his thing is so long, whatever your name was. So I don't really feel that he was that madly in love with her, just based on how he acts. So he leaves her, he abandons her, and then 8 years later, I believe is when, I don't know if it was actually 8 years later, I could be wrong about that, but that's when the story picks up again, and that's when unfortunately the film becomes rather boring. Well, it turns out Javier Bardem and this girl hook up and they get married. Well, when people start trying to assassinate Sean Penn, he immediately presumes it has to do with Javier Bardem's character. So he tracks him down, discovers this, and once again acts like a total prick. I feel like there's some history between them, but because the film never showed it, it just seems totally unjustified. So Javier Bardem, once again, he doesn't win any points either because he acts like a drunken douchebag throughout this entire segment. And but then it turns out that the girl is pregnant with Javier Bardem's child, and they're about to celebrate. Well, Javier Bardem invited Sean Penn over to this celebration dinner, but he didn't tell this girl, so when he shows up, she's all furious with both of them, understandably so, and, she walks out, and then Sean Penn stops her, and then, in the coldest manner possible, goes back totally to business. If Felix, I believe his name was, wants to share information, tell him that I'm staying at blah 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 hotel. And she's like, fuck, man, that's kind of dickish of you. But then she just leaves, and but then later on at his hotel, she shows up once again. She apparently has just found out she's pregnant with this other guy's child, and they have sex with each other. I'd care about this romance more if they did a better job at establishing why these people are in love with each other. But no, once the film starts, they have been in a relationship for quite some time, and all we really see of them interacting is of them making out. This could have easily been a romance or, Sean Penn hiring a hooker, and it would have had the exact same impact. Because, once again, the character writing is so bad. And, she talks about her relationship with Javier Bardem, and she says, she owes him her life, and you find out why, and it makes this act later on, when you find out what exactly she's referring to, it just makes this whole bit seem more awful on her end. And she says something along the lines of, I'm still paying the debt and he's still collecting. I don't know why, but that made me dislike both her and Javier Bardem's character even more, because that's her. Or if we as the viewer really felt that this was not a good guy and that he was kind of abusing her, and even though Javier Bardem's character is a very amoral person in regards to what he did in the Congo, he does seem to genuinely love her, even though he's going about it the wrong way. So by the end, his story thread is resolved. I had no idea what I was supposed to feel about him. Was I supposed to feel bad for him? Was I supposed to hate him? I don't know. And she's obviously really broke. He dies. That's all I'm going to say. He dies relatively early on. And then she's obviously broken up, so it's not like she seemed like there was resentment when she said that line, but when he dies, she's totally broken up. She's devastated, and so I didn't really buy what she was saying either. And yet, 10 minutes later, she never mentions him again. In fact, her pregnancy is never brought up again. Great job, writers. So then, eventually, Sean Penn comes clean. He tells her exactly why he left, what he had been doing, and she seems oddly cool with this. You expect that this would be where the third act breakup occurs, where she's, disgusted and she walks out. Nah, she never really gets angry at him or anything. She's just like, oh, so that's why. She seems way too understanding of this shit. Especially when you find out that he may have indirectly caused her to get gang raped. It's really implied that is what happens. But there's not a real payoff there. So, in the end, I just did not like any of these people. They could all die in a fire for all I cared. But what battled against that negativity was the fact that I was bored and disinterested. So, in retrospect, the Gunman kind of sucked. Like I said, at first glance, it just seems like a mediocre, normal, forgettable action thriller, but it's deceptively terrible. So I cannot recommend this movie in any shape or form. If it's on TV and you're really bored and there's nothing else on, you might want to give it a look. I'd personally do something else myself, but it's up to you if you're like a big Sean Penn completist, you like this cast, whatever. I won't blame you for watching it, because like I said, even if I told myself my feelings, going back in time, I'd probably still make myself watch it anyway. some people are just like that. But if you're on the fence, I wouldn't personally bother. I did not do a written review of this, but I have done written reviews of Three Outlaw Samurai, an old samurai movie. I've begun the Puppet Master month. I reviewed Puppet Master, Puppet Master 2, and Puppet Master 3, which has demonic puppets fighting Nazis, so that was pretty amazing. I had written my review of Puppet Master 4, but my website glitched and I lost that all apparently. I really love just rewriting entire fucking reviews. I'm not looking forward to that. But that'll probably be up tomorrow. And I plan on watching 5 tonight. So follow me on Twitter, Facebook, keep up with what I'm doing. Thank you for watching this, and I shall see you guys later.